Welcome back to Chicago Tomahawk. I'm Mike. I got Matt with me, and today we've got a special guest, Theo Fox on our show. How you doing, man? From Hockey Buzz.
Excellent, thank you, and thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And to be honest with you, man, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and it's the Blackhawks prospects because, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Seth Jones and even Caleb Jones. And I want to know, like, what do we have coming up? Because Kane and Taves, they're probably about 4 to 5 years away from retiring. You know, more than likely, unless they pull a Jumbo Joe, you know, then maybe they've got, 7 years. But, I just want to talk about kind of what do we have in the pipeline. And to start it off, what was your opinion on the Blackhawks offseason?
For the most part, I thought it was good. It was surprising, just because I think the fan base was, in a sense, primed to think of a rebuild based off of a youth movement, and then it changed course with the rumor that not only just Seth Jones being on the market, but also with Dougie Hamilton being a free agent, and the Hawks rumored to be in on both of them. Obviously, they weren't going to get both of them, but they were in on trying to snag one of them. And obviously they got Jones, but with McCabe and Jujhar Khaira and Tyler Johnson and Marc-Andre Fleury, very happy, to be honest. It's exciting. It's just surprising because of the youth movement. And I think for me, it's the perspective I have, and not that I have any evidence that this is just how the management changed course, but I think the youth movement is still in effect. I think they're just kicking the can down the road a year, just allowing the prospects who they got to see this past season and see what they needed to work on, and just have them marinate more in Rockford. And then who knows? I mean, they could be amongst the first call-ups this coming season, because injuries and illness and COVID protocol are inevitable. And so you're going to need that depth from Rockford. And so, I think we'll see more youth next season, and then obviously the seasons after. But I'm actually pretty happy with off-season. Surprised, but happy, satisfied.
I loved it, man. And it's kind of funny that you bring it up. I think that the public in general thought that, hey, we're going to have a rebuild going on for the next 4 to 5 years or something like that, and a lot of people bought into it. And then we end up kind of retooling everything, and kind of looks like we're going for it. And a lot of people are unhappy with that. Do you think that people are unhappy with it because they were expecting something and not getting it? Or do you think that they wanted the long, drawn-out rebuild?
I think it boils down to just the definition of what a rebuild is. And I think there's been examples of where you just do a full teardown, sell off everything, get draft picks and prospects, and build from there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, people often say, hey, look at Edmonton. They've had all those first-round picks. But they don't advance very far, and they have two of the best players, in the world, with Draisaitl and
McDavid.
Yeah, and McDavid.
I call him McGregor. So I call him Connor McGregor on here quite often.
Even before those two guys, they had Taylor Hall. They had
exactly.
Nuge. They had and it was just, it wasn't going right. And it's like, where when do you start? Like
Yakupov.
Nail Yakupov. Yeah. And I feel like the Rangers were kind of doing what the Hawks were doing, and then they signed the bread man to all that money, and it's like a hurry up rebuild, and it doesn't even feel like they're rebuilding anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a hurry up type of thing. I feel like it's not like a long Detroit Red Wing rebuild.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need youth because you need to replenish from within, and then you supplement through free agency. But you also need that leadership core, and obviously the core that we all know from the Cup era is depleting. I mean, it's just Taves and Kane, and right now even Taves is iffy with whether or not he will start the season healthy, or if he can even play a full 82 games. But I think that's why I was satisfied with the offseason, because of the fact that they brought in not like really young players, but players with some tread on their tires, where they have experience, like Jake McCabe, and definitely a Seth Jones and Marc-Andre Fleury. I know he's in the back nine of his career, but I mean, he's still stellar. I mean, he won the Vezina, so
Yeah, that's huge.
yeah.
So what are your opinions on Lucas Reichel? Because there really hasn't been much on him recently.
Yeah, I think he's definitely the top prospect in the system. In my eyes, as far as forwards go, I think he's definitely top of the charts of this system. And that's not to say he's going to go into camp and earn a spot right away. He could. I think because he's new to North America and he's still a teenager, if I had my druthers, I'd have him start in Rockford just to at least get used to North American ice, smaller rink, and then he would be really one of the first call-ups, especially if you needed a top 9 or top 6 player. I think if you needed a fourth liner, then you call up a Mackenzie Entwistle or Mike Hardman or even Josiah Slavin. But I think Reichel is definitely up there in terms of he's a dark horse to make the team out of camp. There may not be space, but I think he would be definitely amongst the first call-ups. The thing with the way he plays, he's almost tailor-made for the smaller ice service of North America because he goes through traffic. He'll take a hit to make a play, and he bounces right back. I mean, he's still a teenager with a wiry frame, so he's got to add some muscle so he has that longevity to take on the NHL physicality. But I think he'll at least be a second liner. I think he'd be hard pressed to be a first liner, to be honest. But I think second line could be his ceiling. But even if he's third liner, he's going to be a heck of a third liner.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it just seems like since Marian Hosa's been gone that there's just this huge gaping hole at right wing, and was it first line right wing right next to Taves, and we haven't really had anybody there. Well, we got Kubalik, but with Kubalik being a shooter, and definitely Taves he'll shoot, but I think he more looks to dish. Who do you think could fit into that top right wing spot? Do you think Reichel could do that?
I think Reichel could, because he's one who will dig out pucks. He's strong on the forecheck, and like I said, he will go to the dirty areas and will take a hit to make a play. And when that happens, and you have a line mate like Taves, obviously with his experience, but he's equally a playmaker and a shooter. And then you have two guys who can get the puck to Kubalik, who is just so good at sneaking into those soft areas and just I mean, he can wire a shot even if he has two guys draped on him. There's just something about him. Like, it doesn't matter how he just contorts his body and will get a shot off very hard. May not be clean, but it's hard.
Yeah, he's definitely a shooter. When you think of how many shooters do we have, I think of Kubalik. He'll shoot all day. We just need somebody to get him to puck. Yeah. Where do you think Henrik Borgstrom fits in?
I think for me, I don't know too much about his defense. His skating is pretty decent. I think he is almost like Nylander, where he might thrive best if he's in a top 6 role. I think when you put him in a third line role, it may not necessarily be the best use of his skills. Whereas obviously, like, when the Blackhawks had Philippe Deneau, I mean, I know Deneau wants to be paid like a top 6, but he's a very good third liner and can play second line. He's very hard pressed to be a first liner. Right. But I think with Borgstrom, I think he'd be a very good second line center, which would be good, especially if they're trying to ship out Dylan Strome, and then he could take that spot. But then you have Taves, Doc, and Borgstrom down the middle, which is fine because Doc
Tyler Johnson
and Tyler Johnson. Yeah. So that's good depth. And the thing with Johnson is he can play wing, and there's always been talks, hey, should Doc play wing?
Considering how big he is, I mean, Doc, if he could get his face-off, his face-off numbers better, I think that he'd be a good center. I think he plays center pretty well.
Yeah.
The position.
Well, you know what I find interesting? What Dave McCarthy said. He thinks he's like a Ryan Getzlaf, and I was kind of blown away by that. I'm like, I guess I don't see that yet, but I mean, the guy is pretty much, his hockey is his life. And I mean, he said that he could see Doc just like taking over a game, and it just like the speed will just go down to his level and he'll control the game. And I found that interesting.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
I didn't agree with his speed because Doc does have speed. He's not slow by any means.
No,
but he, Doc does really well, I think, in the center of the ice, deciding where he's going to dish the puck, left or right. you know, and maybe he could do that from wing, but I just really like the Taves. I like Tyler Johnson at that second line center role between the Cat and Kaner, and Doc on the third line, so that he's just not getting so much pressure on those top two lines. What do you think of that, Theo?
Yeah, I think with Doc, especially with last year being, I don't want to say a throwaway year, but obviously he was injured for most of the season. He needs to get up to speed, and I think part of that is adjusting to the rigor, feeling comfortable with the wrist after that gruesome injury. But I think third line is a good spot to put him because then he could have lower quality of competition, and then graduate him throughout as the season progresses, and then maybe swap him and bump Tyler Johnson down to third line, and then he becomes a second line center. I could see that happening. I think there's just a lot of flexibility now with center because Doc could move to wing. Tyler Johnson can play wing. Borgstrom, I'm not sure if he can play wing. Obviously, Strome was played at wing not very well. And then the thing with Reichel, he can play all three positions. And last year, specifically in Germany, he was playing a lot of center. And so he has that versatility to play wherever you need him to. And which is good because he can play either wing too. So it's not like he can only play right wing.
Right.
Do you have a comparable NHL player to Reichel, Theo?
For Reichel?
Like a current one?
Yeah. Philippe Deneau comes to mind. I think Reichel might have a little bit more offensive output than he would. I think there's also players like Kevin Fiala, but I think Fiala just is a little bit more. He has a lot more feistiness to him, and will dish out more hits. But I think in terms of the offensive upside, I think you're really looking at someone who just is very good at all three zones. Reichel is just good up and down the ice, but just I think in terms of if you want to project like points, and I think this is obviously once he kind of hits his stride. Maybe in his rookie year, he's going to get like 30 points, something like that. But I think once he hits his stride, I could see him getting in that 50-point range. Something like 15 to 20 goals, and then being the 50 points total. Yeah, and I think going back to Doc and that comparison to Getzlaf, that when he was first drafted, that did cross my mind of Getzlaf is a comparable. I just don't see Doc as physical as Getzlaf. I think another comparable that I see is Blake Wheeler. Just similar size, lanky, more of a playmaker, but also a very good centerman. And I'm not quite sure on Wheeler's faceoff numbers, but you're right that Doc does need to work on that. I mean, all the centers really need to work on that. Besides Johnson and Taves, but especially since they shipped out Camp or didn't sign Camp, they got to find more faceoff wins with who they have down the middle.
Speaking of Blake Wheeler, man, talk about somebody who just disappeared. I thought he would have been a top 10 player in points like the last 3 years. He was an assist machine.
Yeah,
and I just haven't heard anything from him.
Has he been hurt?
I don't know what's up with him.
Clearly, we don't cover the Jets.
Yeah, we're not Jets guys, but I just remember seeing his name in points. Like he was with Kaner in assists. Like, I mean, the goals were low, but his assists were like amazing. But I know that he lost Patrick Laine, and the guy disappeared.
Yeah, I guess that's what happened when Laine wants out.
Yeah.
So Theo, who do you have as the top 3 forward prospects right now in the Blackhawks organization?
Right now, Reichel number 1, Borgstrom 2, and then Mackenzie Entwistle 3rd.
Let's leave Reichel and Borgstrom out. Who are the 3 that you have under them?
Entwistle, Hardman, and Barrett.
Okay. What do you like about say each of them?
I could see Entwistle and Hardman forming the nucleus of a future 4th line just because they play a heavy style. They dig out pucks. They can play physical if the game requires them to do that. But they're also very good in all 3 zones. I think Entwistle is a better skater, but I don't think Hardman is a horrible skater. I think he's sufficient enough to get up and down the ice. So they're not liabilities defensively. But I think with Entwistle especially, he's proven in his hockey career that he's a big game player. He's the one you put out there when you need defense. when the game is on the line. And I think even some, depending on the team, obviously more so in juniors and maybe the World Juniors. But I think maybe he was out there for more offensive, crucial situations. But I think defensively, he's the guy you want on a key penalty kill or to hold a lead, or just to keep a game tied in some crucial moments of the game. And then Hardman, just to be honest, when they first assigned him out of Boston College, when was it, like in March? I wasn't too high on him, partially because I didn't know much about him, to be honest. But after I got to research him more, and obviously once we got to see, I think he played 8 games in the season. I was sold on him. I think he proved himself to be a future fourth liner for the team. He could be he could play third line. I just don't know what his offensive upside is at the NHL level. But you never know. He could be Brian Bickle where he's okay during the regular season, but just once he's in the postseason, where
turns it up.
he ramps it up. You up the ante, and some of these players.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Just
unless you're paying him a ton of money and they only give you 5 goals during the season and you don't make the playoffs.
Or if you're Austin Matthews, you get 40 goals and not show up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So what about the top 3 defensive picks?
So the 3 are the ones who played last season in some games for the Hawks. So it's Kalynuk, number 1, then Mitchell, and then Beaudin. And the thing with Beaudin, I've heard so many different ways to pronounce his last name. Beaudin.
Yeah, we say Beaudin.
I say Beaudin too.
Yeah.
So I
agree with those. I agree with that order too. I like it. Do you think these guys will be on the team, or do you think they're going to get some time in Rockford?
I think Kalynuk has the best chance of not only cracking the lineup, but being in the starting 6. I just, if he makes the team, he's not going to be the 7th person. He's not going to be the reserve. If you're going to make him the reserve, give him big minutes in Rockford, and then call him up later. And then I think Mitchell and Beaudin will be the top D pair in Rockford. Unless Kalynuk is down there too, then they'll be the top 3.
Where do you have Stillman in your list? Do you have him on the current NHL? Well, I know, but do you think that he could be in Rockford? Because I just don't know I'm looking at the depth. It's what do we do with this guy?
Yeah, with not Seth Jones, sorry, Caleb Jones and Stillman. I'd have to check, and obviously Cap Friendly is the Bible for a lot of hockey fans. In terms of seeing if they're waiver exempt.
Two-way deals, yeah.
Yeah, and so at least with the younger players, well, I shouldn't say younger because Kalynuk is actually 24 now, and I think he's puts him at the same age as Caleb Jones and even Stillman. And so at least with Mitchell and Beaudin, there's no problem having them marinate in Rockford because they're not going to be claimed. They don't have to pass the waivers. But some of the other ones, you have to be careful with that. And that's the reason why I think Borgstrom will make the team almost by default, because I think he's not waiver exempt. So if you send him down, then you risk another team claiming him.
Yeah.
Do you have, say, 3 other defensive prospects that didn't play last year?
Yeah. Well, at least in North America, Jacob Galvas, he's been in Finland the past 2 years, and before that he played, I think, 2 or 3 seasons in the Czech League, which is home for him. So he's been pro ever since he got drafted. The year before he went pro, the year before he was drafted in 2017, he was already playing against men. So he's been playing pro hockey for 5 years, and now he's going to the AHL. So I think he could be a sneaky good pick in terms of his learning curve may not be so high. He just hasn't gotten a lot of fanfare, but if you want to say the Blackhawks PR machine or just by NHL pundits in general, which is fine. Not every prospect is going to get the fanfare, but I think he could be sneaky good just because he's been playing pro for a long time. And then the other player is Chad Chris. He only played maybe half a dozen games last year before he got injured. And he doesn't get a lot of fanfare either because he had so many other D prospects ahead of him, including Boquist before Boquist got traded. So he had 4 people ahead of him. And so, but that isn't to say that he's junk. I just think that, he's just part of a deep pipeline, at least on the defensive side. So I think he's one to watch, and I don't think he'll crack the lineup this year. I think he needs another full year after being injured last year, and then maybe push the envelope for next year. And then Isaac Phillips is the other one. I mean, if the pandemic hadn't happened, which we all wish, and a lot of the junior leagues hadn't shut down, Isaac Phillips and Michael Krudel wouldn't have been with the Rockford Ice Hogs last year. They would have been in juniors. But I think because Phillips had that chance to play pro, I think he acquitted himself quite well as a teenager. He definitely has a lot to work on, but he wasn't the worst player in Rockford last year. He definitely wasn't a liability, but you definitely saw where his learning curve is. But he's got a way to go, but I like what I saw out of Isaac Phillips.
What was your scouting report on Boquist? Because I just don't see, what everybody else, saw in him. What did you think of Boquist as a prospect, and then say how he's developed as a player so far?
Yeah, last season is almost like a tale of two seasons for him. Like, he wasn't good at all. Like, right when the season started, and then just for a handful of games after he got out of COVID protocol, to the point where, like, man, you just got to send him down. You got to marinate him more, as long as you need in Rockford. But they kept him up, and I think it paid out. It paid off eventually, where he actually was one of the better defensemen on the team, and on most nights, and I could get crucified by a lot of fans, I thought he was better than Duncan Keith on a lot of nights in terms of just flipping the ice. He made some smart plays. He was the best passer out of all the defensemen. There's so many defensemen who will just do that stretch pass. Ian Mitchell was just so guilty of it. He would make a stretch pass and just not connect. It's like, stop doing that. You just got to move the puck out of the zone with your feet. And so that's what I hope him, Mitchell, and Baudin work on, is use your feet more to move the puck out. But Boquist, he could actually connect on a pass, whether it's a short pass, a long pass. But I think for a lot of fans, it's from what I read, a lot of people just are concerned about his durability.
His speed too.
He's not the quickest skater.
Yeah. And he's small.
For a little guy, you'd think he'd be faster, and he's not at all.
Yeah.
And he does not recover. He cannot recover when he makes a mistake, I noticed too.
Yeah. And that's what you want out of defensemen, is you want them to not only be resilient after they take a hit, but you want that escapability. So if you're under pressure, can you escape that pressure through skating cleanly and move the puck up ice? And that's what you see out of Kalynuk. He is so good with protecting
I was just going to say that.
And I think Mitchell and Baudin are close. I think they just need some more time in Rockford, and then they'll be ready. I just don't see them right off the bat, unless they're really working hard this offseason. So I wouldn't count that out. But Kalynuk, I think, is the most ready. And he is older. I mean, he's 24 now, whereas Mitchell, I believe, is 21, and Baudin is 20 or 21. So that's almost naturally to be expected for Kalynuk to be a little bit more advanced than they are.
Future's bright.
Yeah.
On defense, at least. I'm excited about those guys.
Yeah, I am big time.
For once, I'm more excited about our defense than, usually we got these forwards that are hyped, but our Mitchell and Baudin, I'm really excited for.
Yeah,
kind of reminds me of like Keith and Seabrook when they were coming in like 06, I get the vibes like Mitchell's can kind of be that two-way guy, and even Baudin can too, and it's good to see. Because we haven't had anybody like stick for a while, because we've had our solid core for the last couple of years, and they never had a chance to make the lineup.
Yeah.
We had Seabrook, Jarmelson, and Keith, obviously, and just guys filling in the blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked Mitchell and Baudin, because I think that they made better decisions than Boquist did. And I think Boquist's bad decisions just really stuck out to me like a lot. And one thing that really stuck out to me was Kalynuk, was that I didn't see him make a lot of spectacular plays, but I didn't see him make any really bad plays either. It seemed like he was out there playing really well, and he wasn't getting burned. And but at the same time, he wasn't firing in howitzers from the blue line either, I really, really like what I saw.
Well, I had a coach who used to say, when you were a defenseman and we didn't notice you, that's a good thing, because he's probably had a good night.
Yeah.
Quietly, usually Boquist would make that mistake, and we'd get haunted. They'd go back and score the other way, and then it's like, God dang, Boquist,
Yeah,
So
you got me saying that the rest of the night.
Yep.
Who are what about the goalie prospects on your list? Who do you got?
Yeah, that's obviously not as deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Drew Comesso, number one, and then Arvid Soderblom, who is signed in May, I believe, out of Sweden. I think he'll push to be the number one in Rockford. I think right now, Cale Morris, he's only on an AHL deal, renewed just for 1 year after his rookie pro year last year. I think Cale Morris will come in number one, and then Soderblom number two. But I could see Soderblom in short order overtake him, and possibly be, maybe an injury call up if needed. But obviously, then you got to decide on what to do with Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia, because obviously you're going to have Fleury and Lankinen as number one and number two, or 1A and 1B for this season. But they're going to have to decide by preseason or by training camp what to do with Subban and Delia, whether you ship out both, keep one. I can't see both of them being on the team.
Who do you like better?
Let's take predictions, Matt. What do you say?
Oh, I mean, it's a hard one, and I'm a goalie guy. So Subban showed some, he could play at times. He made some big saves, but then the next shift, the save he makes, he'd get lost, and I feel like he was swimming around in the crease a little bit. Delia, I just didn't really I didn't get enough of him. He got shelled against the Lightning game one.
Game two.
And was it okay? Game two? I thought it was one.
No, Subban came in, he got nuked, and then Delia came in, he got nuked.
And those are the champs. So I mean,
yeah,
I think Subban might. I think he might have a little more value. Maybe somebody will want him, but I could see Delia being a Rockford guy, and I'm sure he's fine with it. What, he's making $1 million, right?
Yeah,
one more season. So
yeah. What about you, Theo? What do you think's going to happen
between Subban and Delia?
Yeah, what do you think the Hawks are going to do?
Yeah, I would agree with Matt. I think Subban has more value, at least what NHL teams may be looking for. But he could also be a known quantity. People, the league already knows what Subban is about, so they might take a chance on a Delia instead. I mean, Delia's $1 million. I can't remember what Subban is making, but
pretty
they're not
close.
terribly off in terms of salary, so it's not like they're going to break the bank.
Maybe Edmonton will want him.
Yeah,
they need goaltending.
I think it's going to be Subban. Because, we don't really know what Colin Delia can do. He practically played one game last year, and that was it. And then I got to watch Subban, like Matt says, swim around in the crease for, whenever he played the rest of the season.
Yeah, he made some big saves.
He had some solid nights, but for the most part, they get drowned out by some of his other performances that were, quite frankly, horrific, And I think that he's been in the league for 5 years now. This isn't someone who's getting bigger. This is the player that has the same problems that he's had ever since he came in. He's inconsistent, and I think other teams know that. Everybody knows what he is by now, and I think that he's done, to be honest with you. And I don't see how the Hawks can go forward with him.
Yeah, I think that's why going with Comesso and Soderblom over, at least in the long term, over Subban and Delia is the fact that Comesso and Soderblom, they stay compact in their crease. There's no wasted movement with them. They let the puck hit them and they don't panic. Whereas I think with Subban, he has rebound control. And like you said, just a lot of swimming around. And the thing with Delia too, when he his first season, first few games, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 games with the Blackhawks, now 3 years ago, he was that way too. He was compact, just economical in his movements, but then he just started flailing. And I know he had some personal things to work through, maybe it was 2 seasons ago, but that got sorted out. But I don't know. He seems to have regressed a little bit, but I could see teams taking a chance on him. I just don't see either Subban or Delia being in the Blackhawks system a year from now. And definitely one of them I would see is gone by training camp. And then both of them will be gone by next summer.
I told Matt last year, actually not last year, because we only had such a short season. At the beginning of the year before the season started, that Lankinen was going to be the starter for the Blackhawks by the end of the season. 2 weeks later, he was. I didn't think that it was going to happen that quickly. Did you see Lankinen, having such a fast rise, such a strong rise in the organization?
I'm glad you used the term fast rise. I didn't see him being the one who actually took the reins last season, but I saw him as ultimately the person who would take the crease maybe this coming season, not back in January.
Right. Crazy. So is there anything you're looking forward to the Hawks season this year?
I'm excited just because I don't want to say that the Hawks, and I think I've probably used this term before, but I think the Hawks sort of are going all in, at least to get into the playoffs and go as deep as they can take it. They're far from being a Stanley Cup favorite. I mean, just look at the Vegas odds, but I think that they've made some changes to add experience, add some competitiveness, cut bait with some of the excess fat, but then also hit the reset button with the rebuild and, in a sense, like learn from the Jokiharju and Boquist experiments where they just called them up way too early instead of just letting them marinate in Rockford for at least one full season, if not 2 seasons. And I think that's what they're doing, or at least I hope what they're doing with Mitchell and Bodin, and maybe Kalanick to a certain extent, is let them stay in Rockford and marinate as long as possible, and then they'll be ready for it, and then they'll just be better in the long term. Whereas, like just what people saw with Boquist, he struggled, and he wasn't better for it. And I think he would eventually get there, but you're going to have to go with the growing pains in the NHL. I'd rather see the growing pains happen in the AHL.
Is there anything you're specifically looking forward to the Ice Hogs season this year?
Yeah, I think with the Ice Hogs, they've made a lot of decisions to go young too, and that's partially by design of what the Blackhawks want to do since they're the parent club. And so, it's good just to see a lot of the prospects on the Hogs and not a whole lot of career AHLers filling up like a third or a half the roster just to field a team. But it'll be exciting to watch. Just like draft picks from the past 3 or 4 years fielding that roster, and whether or not they're good, I don't watch Ice Hog games. You want them to win. That's just sports. But if they lose, I don't lose sleep over it. And it's really more about how did this specific player play,
right,
and are they reaching the potential that in terms of what they were built to be when they were first drafted. And if not, can you recalibrate? And I think a player that always comes to mind was Dan Cleary. I mean, former first rounder for the Hawks, where he was expected to be a top 6, maybe a first liner when he was drafted, and I can't remember the year. But he had to redefine his career, and he became a really good middle 6 player for Detroit.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
I hated
Dan
that
Cleary,
guy.
wow.
Yeah, I hated him too, but I mean, just the definition of
just
hate.
that beard I hated too.
That beard.
He looked like a Yeti.
It's almost like that happened with Zanol too, because I think that they wanted him to be more of an offensive player, and they really weren't looking into him as a defensive player, because at the time I think we still had Boland at the time, and they weren't really looking for that type of player. Fast forward 5 years, we could really use him. Especially with his face-off winning abilities.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's going to be a top 6 in L.A. I think they want more out of him. Personally, I've heard that from Boomer and Jake today. Jake's really high on the Kings, and he thinks Danault is going to be second line center, and they want more production out of him. And I think that's why he signed there, because I think he wanted that role as well. He wants some points. He wants to score, and he wants to be the man behind Kopitar.
Yeah. I think it's good insurance. I thought that was a really good move by the Kings to sign Danault, just because it buys time for Byfield to play third line, kind of like what you were suggesting about Doc. Let him play third line first, get his feet wet, get more comfort level. There's no point in rushing him to be a top 6 center. Same thing with Byfield. And then Kopitar, it's similar to Taves. Obviously, he's more healthy, but Kopitar, I mean, he's also on the second, he's in his 30s now, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it's not like he's going to be going strong for another decade. He could, but not everyone's a Yager. So, but I like what they're doing. And then they have Turcotte too.
Chicago
who can play
guy.
down the middle.
Yeah.
And so their center depth is really good in LA.
I can see LA doing something. We were talking, I think it was the last podcast or two ago, about what the Blackhawks are going to do with Taves in a couple years, because as he starts to slow down a little bit, he could easily go into that third line center, shut down. We need a face-off win type of center role and really, really excel at it and possibly extend his career. I can see Kopitar doing that in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that one too.
Yeah, I think those two, and I think Bergeron is going to go probably the longest at the clip he's playing at. He's just so good. But Bergeron, Kopitar, and Taves, once they're just winding down their careers, they're going to be really good third liners.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those young centers got they got good mentors to show them the way too. Like Dave said, Steve Yzerman, I mean, he was the third line center with Zetterberg and Datsuk in front of him. That's just a really good team right there.
Yeah. Actually, I was mentioning with Matt, when a long time ago when Yzerman came into the league, he was an offensive center and he didn't really hone his defensive part of the game, but he scored in buckets. And Scotty Bowman told him, if you want to have a good career in this league, you got to learn to play both ends of the ice. And he sacrificed some points for playing defense, but he still scored 60 goals a season.
And cups.
And cups. And, he played both ends of the ice, and he really developed into the ultimate player, ultimate center. And then at the end of his career, he pretty much just specialized in the defensive aspect of the game. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of players that don't really go through that, just go through that evolution. And I really believe that guys who could play both sides of the puck are tending to maybe take that lead and do that as well. I definitely think Bergeron and Kopitar and Taves will do it.
Well, yeah. Do you guys remember when they put Sergei Fedorov on defense? I think that was with the Blue Jackets. I want to say. I think it was Hitchcock, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
And he was actually a stud. He was
excellent.
Really good. Yeah.
Man, Sergei Fedorov was one of my favorite players of all time, and that's saying something, man. Because I'm a Blackhawks fan, man, through and through. Jeez. I hated the Red Wings for continually, beating up on the Hawks back in the 90s.
Might want to take this clip out.
Man, but I'll tell you what, dude.
Editing software.
Sergei Fedorov was unbelievable, man.
Well, just YouTube best glove save in the world. You just watch Eddie Belfour just rob him. That's Sergei Fedorov for me.
Oh man, and then you look at the next clip on YouTube, and it goes to Fedorov's 5-goal game.
I remember that game.
It was insane.
Yeah, Mike, actually, to your point about redefining yourself, I mean, Marian Hossa is a perfect example of where he was predominantly an offensive player. When he was with the Senators, the Thrashers, and even with Pittsburgh, it really wasn't until Detroit, I believe, was when he really took off defensively and became who we know him as,
the demigod
in Blackhawks land. Yeah, as just one of the best two-way players. The thing was, he wasn't always a two-way player.
Yeah, best free agent signing in Chicago sports history, Marian Hossa. Yep.
Yeah, he was. Actually, me and Matt have been talking about it recently this year, is that Kane has started developing his defensive game, and he backchecked a lot this year, man.
Not as good, but he.
No, yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'm
not
way
comparing
better.
him to Hossa, but I'm saying that he is definitely, he has a defensive game to his defensive side to his game now, and he had some key takeaways that led to offensive opportunities, and I think that he sees the value in that now.
Yeah, and I think that's why I enjoy watching the Ice Hogs, because their head coach Derek King, a phrase he uses a lot is, we have to coach the junior out of a lot of these players. They're not going to put up these video game stats anymore. They can't cheat on offense. They got to learn to play without the puck. And I think that they're going to be ready for it in terms of when they are recalled to the Blackhawks, they can actually stay afloat and not just tread water or sink immediately, but they can actually be an impact player. And so Brandon Hagel is a perfect example.
Yeah.
That's Mike's boy.
Yeah, I love him, man. He just goes out there and puts it all. He just leaves it all out there, you know.
Yeah.
I love him. I think he's phenomenal. Do you think that there is a really huge difference between juniors and the AHL?
In terms of Canadian juniors?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's obviously with lower leagues, and if you're counting like high school and college, the structure and strategy increases as you advance through the leagues. I think there's just obviously it's a heavier league in terms of hard hitting, the rigor in the AHL, and so I can't remember where I read this, but for anyone to say the AHL is just it's the minor leagues, like it's like single A in baseball, it's not. I mean, AHL, that's where you cut your teeth. I mean, if you want to learn the rigor and learn how to take a hit but also play physical, like fight back, that's a good place to learn. If you can make it, cut it right away like Taves did and never spend a day in the minors, but not everyone's like that. Majority of the players aren't, and so spend as much time as you need in the AHL.
Yeah, honestly, I think that I might have read the same article that they mentioned that the NHL actually isn't as physical as the AHL is. Like the AHL is more physical, and a lot of guys cut their teeth down there. Would you say the AHL's more physical than the NHL?
There's probably metrics and advanced stats that can prove one way or another. I think anecdotally, yes, and part of it is. And I've seen this on different message boards where fans say this, and I agree with it. It's, players need to make a name for themselves. And especially if your skill level isn't as high, one way to make a name for yourself is through hitting and playing a physical game. As long as you stay, you're not a Tom Wilson, then, I think you can definitely get some notice and at least earn a call up and go from there. And you never know. You might carve out a pretty nice career. You could be a journeyman and, jump around team to team, but, at least be a commodity where teams want you in their bottom six. You're not going to produce a lot of points, but you provide value on the PK or on the defensive side of the puck, or just agitate. And I think that's what I like about Entwistle, Hardman, Evan Barrett, even Andre Altibar-Markian. They just, especially those two, Barrett and Altibar-Markian, and even Tim Soderlund before he got traded with Keith to Edmonton, they play with us a lot of sandpaper. They're not the biggest players, but they just get after it. And the reason why you guys like Hagel and why so many fans love Hagel is he just gets after the puck. There's not
love it.
Speed.
Love the speed. Yep.
And there's not a single shift where he doesn't at least touch the puck,
right?
Whether to force a turnover or he's handling it or just to knock it away or like to deflect a pass, by clogging the lanes. Yep. Like he's just a puck magnet. Like wherever the puck is, there's Hagel. It's like, where did you come from?
Yeah, just hard work and speed. It's like even if he's like coasting on TV, it still looks fast to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, you got anything else, man?
Yeah, Theo, what do you think? Wild card spot this year for the Hawks, or do you think we're still probably going to compete for that second wild card and maybe fall short?
I'm going to go optimistic and say that they actually get a spot. That they don't even need the wild card. But I'm probably going to eat my words.
1, 2, 3.
Probably,
okay.
Yeah. I'm probably going to eat my words, and they're going to be backing in maybe on the last game, looking at the standings and the scoreboard to be like, are we in? But
yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I think I know our division is way better than the Pacific, so I know, like Dave said too, it's going to be 5 teams, or 5 teams from the Central. Obviously, Colorado, St. Louis, maybe Minnesota. I just think Dallas is getting older, but I think maybe the Hawks and the Jets in the wild card for me.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed with Dallas. I don't know what they're doing either. They have like 13 starting goalies now, and I don't know who's going to play. I just didn't understand those moves at all this summer.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be as optimistic had they not traded for Fleury. Like if they were going in with Lankinen and say any of Dealey or Subban, you're talking probably outside looking in. But Fleury gives them a chance to be competitive every night. So the defense could still be mediocre. I think McCabe is an upgrade, and I know there's just ad nauseum debate on Seth Jones isn't a good defenseman. I think he's a good defenseman. He, you know, 31 teams wouldn't, or however many there are now, 32. Obviously not. Well, 31 because Columbus, he didn't want to stay in Columbus, but
right.
So many teams wanted him.
Who does?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank you, Theo, for coming on the show, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
You were awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man. This was great hearing about the future and all that stuff. It was awesome.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna have you back on because that was a good conversation.
Yeah, anytime. Yeah, I appreciate the invite.
But that's all that we got for you tonight, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Tomahawk. We're out of here.